it's Krishma here. I'm a behavior consultant, dog behavior consultant, and I'm talking today about reactivity, behavior challenges, living in the city, and walking our dogs. And the topic is going to be defensive or managed walking, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. I'm super excited to have you here, so it's nice to see you all. Hello, welcome. If you have any questions about walking your dog who maybe performs like lungy barky behaviors, pulling on a lead, maybe they're struggling with people or dogs or prey, pop your questions in the chat. I'm going to be joined by CCA trainer Melanie. Here she is. Hi Namita, nice to see you. Hiya.
Hello.
Hi Melanie, it's so nice to see you. Welcome. Everyone, this is Melanie. If you haven't met her already, she's one of our amazing behavior consultants and trainers on the ground in New York City, actually. And I'm so excited to chat about this topic, which you actually wanted to bring. You were like, I want to talk about defensive walking. Can you just maybe just before we dive into it, what was it that spurred you to have this topic when we were like, what do we talk about for reactive dogs? What was it that you picked this one?
Well, if I can say a lot about it really quickly. So back when I was mostly a puppy adolescent trainer, the secret to all of this is that our amazing puppy trainers out there in the world actually get a lot of behavior cases. And I was finding that I was out of my depths. And so I was watching one of your webinars about this. And then I taught from the webinar. I made that webinar my Bible for walking on leash because it was so effective. So when we're working with reactive dogs, the first thing we need to do, if we're going to create any space in their brain for training and changing a behavior, they have to be shielded from reacting and from their triggers. So we can't row forward with behavior therapy and be rowing backwards by having them repeat the behavior over and over every day. So that's why I love defensive walking. It's where I love to start. It's something you can start doing with your dog today, next walk, right now.
Literally, that's exactly what I loved about it as well. And I think I got lots of people after I posted that live a while ago, sort of messaging being like, I've never heard this before. Like, this was not something I've heard of before. And it was the same for me when I first started working in New York, on the ground in New York City, one of the biggest industry businesses in Manhattan. I was never really taught this piece of the puzzle. I was taught to like get out there and start training your dogs around triggers. And I see so many clients come to us and they're like, I've been trying to train. I've been going out every single walk. I've been training around triggers. I've been doing all this stuff. And that's where I go, oh, you're missing a piece of the puzzle. And this is the piece. So maybe we can start off now. We've kind of just dropped those little nugs to get people interested. We can maybe talk a little bit more about what it actually is and what our goals are. And then we can maybe move into who this is applicable to, which is, spoiler, everyone.
So defensive walking to me specifically, especially in the city, is creating distance, both visual, literal, and even kind of emotional distance from the trigger. Mm-hmm. So that can be done by creating that literal physical distance if you have it. Oftentimes I'm getting the complaint, what do you mean? What do you mean avoid dogs on the leash? That's not possible, Melanie. And I hear you. I absolutely do. So in those cases, how can we find distance in our environment, either with our body or using something around us or using treats?
Yeah, exactly. 100%. And I think you hit the nail on the head there where you were like, we're trying to keep distance in all these different ways, including emotional distance from triggers. And I usually say for triggers, I mean things that your dog can't quite handle yet, right? That could be a whole variety of things. And if you hung around at CCA, you know that we work with dogs who have multiple behavior challenges, who are really reactive or fearful or frustrated around people and dogs and prey and cars and all sorts of other things. And so when it comes to these cases where we have big feelings, we need to minimize exposure to the triggers or the situations that the dogs can't yet handle. And that in and of itself can be a bit of it. Sometimes I spend weeks just trying to explain to folks what their dogs can and can't handle and the reasoning behind that, because I used to think that Hira could handle hour-long walks in Manhattan. I used to think he could handle trips to the dog park, and I was actually kind of incorrect, because even though he was maybe not always reactive, or only sometimes he was reactive, the experiences of going over threshold, being overwhelmed, even if he wasn't lunging and barking, sometimes he was just vigilant or nervous. It was pushing our training back. Like you're saying, you're rowing in one direction with one hand and then rowing in the other. You're just going in circles. You're not going anywhere. This is such a key piece of the puzzle. So we're trying to meet their needs, right? Because often we need to get them outside to pee, to poop. You're working in New York. I worked in New York for 6 years. I'm now in London. We often need to take our dogs out to use the bathroom. So we need to meet their needs to use the bathroom, maybe even exercise needs. And we want to do that without too much stress or too much rehearsal of unwanted behavior patterns.
Yes.
It's so, so important, I think.
Yes. So who, someone actually got ahead of us in the chat, but who is this for? It's for every dog, every stage of life. You often puppy dogs are told to avoid on-leash greetings for a variety of reasons. We won't get into all of that because that's a whole other webinar. Adolescent dogs are feeling big feelings. We have whole webinars about that and what that looks like and how to meet their needs while they're in that very intense developmental stage. Adult dogs with behavioral issues, challenges, or even adult dogs who want to focus on sniffing, want to have less stressful walks. And then of course, yes, whether reactive or not, it's good for all dogs. Yes, thank you. Geriatric dogs, they don't want to deal with other dogs. Are you kidding me? I know there are gems that are like so pro-social, but oftentimes we want to really curate our dog's experience, especially outside, especially in a tough environment.
Yeah, that is so true. And that's my last piece as well, like a tough environment. Like when I was working in New York City, when I had puppy clients come in, I would immediately be like, all right, you know how you were learned to defensively drive your car? We're learning to defensively walk your puppy, because in lots of environments, if you're in a big city, if you're in an apartment building, there is very overwhelming stimulus. Some of it meant to be friendly, some of it actually not as well, right? If you're in New York, you've got to be careful. There's a lot of really not super safe animals around New York, humans and dogs. So you've got to be a little bit careful. We are talking here about not just dogs who struggle with reactivity. We're talking with dogs who are recovering from an injury, getting over a spay, dogs who are sick, dogs who it's a storm and they're a little scared of storms, and so they maybe need a bit of extra help. Every single dog, there is a moment in their life where this will be helpful. But if you do have a dog that's performing behaviors that you don't like, frantic pulling, planting, staring, jumping, lunging, barking, biting, snapping, those things, this is a life raft for you. And it's often the first thing that we're doing with our clients, to immediately put a stopgap on unwanted behavior being repeated. An analogy that I really like is the ship analogy that Dr. Amy Cook uses. And she says that when you're doing a behavior plan, it's like you're building a boat. You have a boat, and if you're having instances where your dog is rehearsing these behaviors, these emotions, right? Hira might not lunge and bark, but he would be staring down a dog on the other side of the street. He was still raging internally. And Dr. Amy Cook would call those holes in the ship, where the water is coming in to the ship, and too many holes will sink a ship, right? And even just one little hole left over long periods of time can actually accrue quite a lot of stress. And so this managed walking and defensive walking is like looking at the walks with your dogs and going, okay, are there any like holes in the ship, and where do we have to plug those holes? So we're talking about reactions to people, dogs, animals, vehicles, going through hallways, elevators, etc., bustling environments. Exactly.
Yeah, all of those things. So we selected just a few to talk about. There are more, and I'm sure some of you in the chat will know more. We wanted to talk about really actionable ones that don't require a lot of learning before this or work before this to do today. So I think you should take the first one, situational awareness.
I love this one. I absolutely love this one so much. And just very quickly, before I go into situational awareness, I just want to remind folks that we're talking today about one very specific piece of the puzzle. So me and Melanie are going to dive into, I think it was like 4 actionable steps, 4 tips that we're going to give you right now that you can immediately start implementing with your dog that will likely help regardless of what's going on with their individual motivations. But this is only one part of a complex holistic framework. And at CCA, we use something called the HEAL framework, which we've kind of written, which is specifically formulated to help very sensitive dog guardians and dogs work through behavior and wellness challenges. And we are just dealing with a piece of the puzzle here. So if you're looking for more, we have so much more content. Go to our website, look at our webinar library, you can learn more. But 4 tips. First one that I'm going to dive into is situational awareness. Now, this is something that some guardians are too good at and they become hypervigilant to the environment. And then there is also one that some guardians really struggle with. And they struggle with that, being able to hold a lot of information in your head, navigate that space, focus on your dog, and also focus on the environment, because you really need to have good awareness of what's going on in your environment. We can't be on our phones. You know, we sometimes, maybe you can have like a podcast in one ear, but we can't really have headphones on when we can't hear what's going on. We need to be situationally aware, like only one dog at a time, walk one dog at a time, so you can be aware of what's going on with that dog and then everything in the environment. I'm looking for the hazards in the environment proactively, not reactively. I'm not waiting for someone to come and go boo and then I go, quick, let's go. I am scanning the environment. If you watch any of my reels, you'll likely see I do a lot of this because I'm constantly looking to see what's happening, and I'm being really mindful of the potential things that could enter the environment, not just what's in the environment. So when you do your driving test in the UK, you do something called the hazard perception test. I don't know if you do this in America. It's basically a video game. I can't drive. I don't know, me neither. It's fine. Dog trainers, we're too cute to drive, Melanie. We're passenger testers. It's all good. But in the hazard perception test, you're driving a car, or not actually, it's like a video game. So you see the screen like you're driving a car, and you have to hit a button when you think that there could be a hazard about to enter the picture. So if you're going down the street, you see a baby in a buggy, hazard. That baby in the buggy could go into the road. You know, going down the street, oh, hazard, there's a turning there that's got a bush in front of it and I can't see very well. So the government is trying to train us to be proactive in our situational awareness and to to think ahead about what could happen. So with me and Hera, I'm looking around blind corners. I'm thinking, I know that's a busy shop. I'm not going to let him walk right by the entrance of the shop. I'm going to actually cross the road because someone could come out of that shop. You know, all these little things that we're looking at. If you do one thing, just have it be this. Start being present with your dog, start watching what's going on around you, and start picking up on patterns, because that in and of itself can be just a whole endeavor for you to like do. And sometimes people recommend going for a walk without your dog if you really struggle with all of that sensory processing. It's a lot, right? So sometimes we take a solo walk if you can, and we look around the neighborhood and we go, I wonder what's going on here. Does that sound good? Sound like same to you? Any tips from New York specifically, because you're playing the video game on extra hard in the city, right?
Yes, absolutely. We're playing the game on hard, most difficult mode. So school schedules. When does school start and let out? That is such a big one. If you cannot be bothered to figure that out, you are overwhelmed, you're already underwater. I do recommend, everyone's going to hate me for saying this, but wake up very early. It's a game changer. Go when it's a little quieter, but know the hazards there as well, right? Then the prey animals are going to be out. The squirrels are eating. They're also out because nobody else is out. So we can take these trade-offs. Is your dog not okay with dogs, but okay with kids? Okay, fine. That's maybe not a good example, but check those school schedules. Check, when do deliveries tend to come? When does mail come? When is the lobby the most busy? Yep, 5 a.m. Hello, me too. When are your elevators typically out? Do people move in on certain days? Is there, in fact, a service elevator that you can use? When I'm working in New York City in these apartment buildings, we are talking about, when does your neighbor go to work? Who orders the most food? Who has a kid down the hall? We're talking about the nitty gritty. I know every single dog on my block and when they walk, so I don't run into them, right? So that's situational awareness. It then leads to a few other tactics you can use, right?
Yeah.
Once you are situationally aware, you can spot triggers from a greater distance. And in fact, I get teased about it by my friends. I will ask them to maneuver with me because I'll see a dog, because my dog is dog sensitive, just to be clear. I'll see a trigger further away than they will, and they'll be like, "You're insane," right? But I see them. So the first most simple, and this is not in any hierarchy, this is just how we've listed them today, is the arc by, or the banana curve, or the curve away. So the curve away, I think, is very functional for dogs. They take to it rather quickly because they don't want to be meeting things head on. That is not natural for them, right?
Totally. And I have a dog in New York who I'm just finishing our Feisty Fido program with. And he started off reacting at every single dog, pretty much, maybe like 80%, 90%. And as we started to work on it, we started to notice that, oh, actually, now he's not reacting at any of the dogs that are walking away from him or perpendicular or looking away. He's only reacting now with the dogs that are face on, eye to eye, nose to nose. And so we were really working on this understanding for him, because he didn't quite understand this. He thought that if we were walking like this on a sidewalk, on a small New York sidewalk, and he learned this from experience, and then there was going to be some sort of horrible, stressful interaction that was too much for him. And it took a while for us to teach him, you see a dog in the distance that you don't like, you can just turn away. We can just move away from that dog. And most dogs, that's what they want. But due to restrictions of the city and on being on leash and human city planning, essentially, has meant that they've lost that lesson. They often don't know that they can do this. And what we tend to find, my clients always say to me when I start doing this with them, they're like, oh my God, they asked to cross the road. They asked to curve around the car. I've never seen them do that before, because the dogs want to take the pressure off the situation. They actually need to learn that you can avoid conflict. You don't have to charge straight forward into the middle of it. And isn't that such a good analogy for like cities in general and what it teaches us as animals living shoulder to shoulder with each other? We learn that we have to resort to conflict more because we have less avoidance strategies. And so this is a big way of teaching them, you know, at the beginning, I might be curving, crossing the road. And that's what I was telling you with Hero earlier. I was saying when I first started working with Hero, because he had stranger issues, I'd have to fully cross the road to get him a sense of alleviation and some sort of comfort from those people. These days, I just we walk straight on. He will take a step off to the side. He will sniff as he passes. He will do it himself. And we've massively reduced the amount of distance that we need to do.
And I think that, just for people in the chat, yes, we teach them by avoiding triggers early on, but if you don't have that ability early on in this process, we want to be directing it as much as we can for our dogs. Then they will start to ask, although that does take time. I think Kira is in a place where he's asking. My dog's in a place where the other day we got too close to a dog and he looked at me like, excuse me, like, let's not, because we don't do this. But early on, yes, we're directing it. We need to communicate with the dog. We need to help create that space. So the space might be greater. My frame is small, but I'm making the space might be really big. It's really tricky. So that's where I would start with the curve away, creating angles and space between you and the trigger, be that a stack of garbage bags, a girl, or a dog.
Exactly. And that actually, because when you do the cut, you're situationally aware, you're watching everything so that you can see when something's coming. I often communicate to my dog, I see that person, and then we move away. If we're in a small space, especially, or if we're in a wide open area where they're like staring over a distance and they're really pinpointing out that trigger, that's when we can curve away and add in some sort of block. And that brings us to our third point, which is, we call it blocking. At minimum, I'll put myself in between the dog and the trigger, but at maximum, I will use pretty much anything in the environment. And if I'm in a natural environment or a place that's a little bit more rural, that could be a tree, it could be long grass, it could be a river, a road, anything that's in, anything you can put in between. But in the city, Melanie, give us some of your favorite things in the city that you use as blocks, because this is always fun.
So if I'm completely out of luck, I will move a bag between my dog and something. Really, oftentimes, yep, garbage bin. I've hid behind little cones. It is more so communicating to your dog. Also, hopefully, if the other people are situationally aware, which is not often the case, but hopefully by using blocks, you're also communicating to the other human that you would like space. I don't think it always works. I'm sure you all have many examples of people not respecting your body language, but I want you to block as much as you can. So my body, I wear a lot of sweatpants. So my sweatpants, you said someone wears a skirt.
I literally saw someone at a dog training conference once, and they had like one of those long skirts, like long flowy skirts, and she literally just took a deep side, like side squat to block the dog's view. And I was like, genius! Oh my god!
I actually sometimes will put a grate, myself on the other side of a grate, and I'll pass another dog, in my case, with the grate between us. My dog doesn't like walking on the grate, so he perceives that to be a block.
A buffer.
I love blocking both body and environmental. And when I'm at my peak of this, when a dog is really really struggling outside, I got to put these three things so far: situational awareness, curving away, and blocking together. Mm-hmm. And so let's say I see a dog from 20 feet away. They came on kind of quick out of a building. I will curve away. I will suss where I'm going to block. Sometimes, if it's safe, that is between two parked cars and then my body. So we've created this little, here's the two parked cars, and then I close that here. Mm-hmm. And so now, in theory, the person should walk away. The dog should not engage, right? That said, I just want to be so clear. I love people, but I cannot tell you the amount of people that I will be fully blocking my dog, giving off like bent over, disengaged body language, and they'll still be like, can he say hi? Very
Melanie, I've literally had like shelter dogs that I was volunteering with, muzzled, 2 leashes, distance signage, do not approach, but, and then there are people with their kids coming up being like, oh, can they pet the dog? I'm like, there's nothing about this scenario that indicates a yes, but I will answer your question anyway. So I do like to make sure that people don't think that we're giving you, this is going to solve all your problems. In some situations it's not going to work, but if you're very consistent with this, with low level triggers, and you take as much distance as you can, in some cases that means you see a dog at the end of the street, you just turn around immediately, you don't even pass them, you're literally just going in a different direction. Like, some people are in the comments being like, well, my dog can't cross the street, they'll bark and lunge the whole way, and I'm like, okay, well then you're going to be curving all the way around. You're going to be taking a big 180, you're going to curve around, turn, like go down a side street or something. And I used to say when I was living in New York that defensive walking is like playing a game of Pac-Man, where there are ghosts and you have to like, and then turn around, and you're going to turn around. Like, that might be what you're doing, and that's not unusual at all. So far we haven't actually given any training tips. It's all to do with like space and pressure and how we are talking to our dogs through where we are walking them. Because if you are seeing a trigger from a distance and you're going, we're going to go this way, either around a car, or we're going to cross the street, cross down a side street, go behind go into this park, like parking space or whatever, to hide. You're teaching your dogs, I see that you're struggling, we're going to move away. It's building like an attachment where you are responding to their lowest level of signals. We don't want to wait until they're freaking out and then do this. We want to be seeing those triggers and then moving them away. And for lots of our dogs, we are walking them very minimally. Yeah, we are doing all of these things. We are trying really, really hard to use space as much as we can. And in scenarios where we can't, we do have like a very easy cue that we do sometimes use. So sometimes we'll need all of this plus a little bit of extra something to keep the dogs in the game with us. And that's usually a find it or a food searching game of some sort.
Yeah.
And Melanie maybe can talk us through a little bit how that might fit into all of this.
I love Find It. I was saying earlier, I genuinely think teaching your dog Find It can save, not to sound so dramatic, but it saves lives. I really do think that. I hate to sound all mushy, but Find It can look a few different ways. I actually teach a specific city Find It, and then we teach Find It. Many trainers teach Find It, and I love it because it's so simple. You're asking your dog simply to toss a treat, to eat a treat off the ground that you've placed or tossed there. So you could toss that treat a few feet away to the left, then a few feet away to the right, and you're asking your dog simply to disengage from everything on this plane and engage on that plane down there. Simply breaking that scanning behavior. Your dog might have never thought to do that. Yeah. They need to learn that. Isn't that so interesting? It really helps them lower their stress levels, because also it engages their sniffing. They're going to sniff for the treat. It's going to lower their heart rate. It's hopefully going to lower their respiration rate. So we're trying to reduce stress and also keep them from scanning or staring at the thing or anticipating the thing. I love Find It. So my city Find It, just real quick, sorry, is a lot. I would ask if my city clients to have the treat hit the ground right down your ankle, right on the other side of your foot for now. And then it can grow from there. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's good because you need them right next to you, right? So imagine this, you're walking down the street, it's early in the morning, you're walking early, you're trying your best to avoid triggers, you're going on a short walk, you're being really perceptive of everything in the environment, and you see, you know, the trash collectors are coming, you see them at the end of the street, you clock them, your dog clocks them, they go, oh, I have some feelings, you immediately turn them off the side of the street, curve away from the stimulus, and you get to a little bit of a distance. Now you need to wait there while the trash guys move past and get out of distance, out of earshot. Find it. That could be a nice use for something like this. Or you're hiding between two parked cars. Find it. And the goal is really to provide them with clear instruction on what we want them to do. Some people will be like, my dog can't find anything when there are triggers around. My dog was the exact same. Totally get that. This is a skill that we teach and we learn. So my dog went from not eating any food outside to now being able to do Find Its on the street with multiple dogs staring at him. It was a trained behavior. We started at the beginning and we worked over multiple months to build that skill. So if you're going, this is never going to happen with my dog, don't worry, I was there too. It absolutely can happen. Yes. The details are a little bit more nuanced. Would have to kind of work through that with your dog in particular. Yeah. But the goal is that we practice all of these skills. I practice situational awareness even when I know there are no trigger dogs around or triggers around. I practice all of these things outside of pairing them with a trigger. And I think that's a really important point to bring up, is that if you're only ever turning them away and doing Find Its when a trigger pops into the environment, guess what's going to start happening? You're going to start managing and they're going to go, what is it? Where's the monster? Oh my God, what's happening?
Yeah.
Where is it? Is it there? And that happened with Hera.
A monster. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd pull out the food and he'd be like, and he'd start watching. What are you trying to do? Yeah. So what are you trying to are you trying to get me to not look at something? What is it?
Yeah.
So we always tell our clients to practice outside of the scenario where there are triggers as well. So for every time that we use these skills around triggers, just try turning around when there are no triggers. Try doing some Find Its when there are no triggers. You've got to kind of build it up. Keep the bank accountable.
Set something in my head, because I'll get so I do like at least 3 Find Its a walk period. That has to happen. Right. So we do have so many questions in the chat, but one
of them is actually exactly what we were thinking. We predicted this one. So
which one do you want to start with?
We do what if you can't get away from the triggers? There are a few different versions of this. So what if you can't get away from the triggers? What if the triggers are coming from lots of different directions? Or you're stuck or something like that? What sort of options do we have at that point for our clients? Because this is a very normal and real situation that we all have been in many times. So I'm going to start off with just sometimes shit hits the fan. Sometimes you can't fix it. And that's okay. If things do get a little out of hand, if we do have lunging, barking behaviors or any behaviors that we don't want to see, the details are often we like to give individual advice, but in general, stay calm. Try not to add any fuel to the fire. If your dog is lunging and barking, if you need space, you can try to communicate with people that you need some space. Hands flat, palms up.
Yep.
Do not approach. Really helpful.
I say, sorry, no, thank you.
Yeah, not today. Not today. I say he's sick. Please give him space, because that really helps people understand he's sick. He needs space. Like sickness, physical sickness seems to be very easy to empathize with in the moment. So I say that. But on top of that, what if we're trying to help our dogs? What is there like? Yeah, what else could we do in those moments, or what could we work towards as a skill for those dogs?
So you can start by oftentimes when we're underwater, metaphorically, we yank backwards. We give really chaotic feedback to both our dog and the other guardian dog team, or whatever the trigger may be, because we're feeling overwhelmed. So yes, if you can, take a breath. I know that's so hard. Slide your hand down your leash towards your dog, as opposed to using your very mobile elbow to yank them back. I want you to give really firm, clear feedback to your dog. And that actually may mean, in some cases, a little bit of leash pressure in a clear direction. So if we are underwater, we have no way to this scenario I'm outlining. There's clearly a reaction either brewing or happening. You may need to move, but I want you to be very clear, go straight, give firm feedback with your dog. And then long term, that's obviously not going to be our contingency for every day. If that's happening, I want you to assess if that environment is appropriate for you to be walking in at this stage.
Yeah.
Not. And then we'd be working towards, though, maybe a magnet hand, which is sort of a modified lure to get through a situation. But also, I think Namita said it in the chat, maybe, script it, practice with your friends. They're coming, oh my God, is that a Pomsky? Sorry, you can't say hi. Let's go. Go, right?
Literally practice it. I sometimes on walks with Hira will just go, hi, not today, thank you. There's no one there. There's literally no one. I look like a complete freak. There's no one there, but I'm like, not today, thanks, no, thank you. And Hira now just looks at me and goes, whatever, weirdo. Sometimes I'll grab his leash, put it on, hold him, and be like, no, thank you, please get your dog, and then let him go. Nothing's happened. It's just me. It's just me alone in a field. But I want him to know that I want, first of all, for myself to practice it. I'm neurodivergent. I freeze or I fight in social situations like that. Like I will throw down and yell. I have done in the past. I've worked on that. Went to therapy.
I've worked on yelling at people, strangers. Yeah, less.
It's incredibly frustrating. Did it cause my dog a lot more stress? Hell fucking yes. So if we're in a situation where, and I've been this, it's so frustrating. You're stuck, you're up against a wall. There are things coming, people coming from lots of different directions. What are you going to do in that moment? First of all, exactly like Melanie said, I'm going to keep everyone safe, right? So I'm not going to let my dog lunge and bark at the end of the leash. Even if they're small, I'm going to pull them to me. Maybe I'll put my foot on the leash, stand on the leash. Sometimes I've had very big dogs and I've needed to wrap the leash around a tree, hold them because I'm not super strong. There are options, a fulcrum, an elbow fulcrum helps as well. So hold the leash, get very stable. I want you to feel confident in that you have them. I don't want you to be falling over and off balance whilst trying to communicate with everybody. Get a hold of them, whether you're holding their leash, stepping on their leash, holding their harness, holding their collar. What are you doing? I want you to just physically make sure that they're safe. And then either we're trying to create distance, we're trying to distract if that's an option, or we're just hunkering down and we're going to breathe. We're going to breathe through this, and we're going to just try our best to ride it out and then work on that recovery. But it's like you're saying, Melanie, if this is happening frequently, we need to have a conversation. And we always, with our guardians, have a conversation about, is this an appropriate place for you to be walking? Or is it that every time we go out, we are smashing holes in the ship, smashing, and we're patching it up and then we're smashing it again. And in some cases, guardians come to us and they're like, there's nothing else I can do. I don't know. I've tried everything. And I always want to give a bit of hope there and say, we've worked with coonhounds on the 70th floor of a Manhattan apartment building. We've worked with Pyrenees in Dubai. Like it's like a great. We work with some really intense scenarios, and you'll be surprised how frequently we can find small little workarounds, tiny little things, and lots of little changes that often build up together and take you from being unable to manage at all to actually having a conversation with your dog at least the majority of the time. And yeah, that's a really important point, I think.
Yes. I think
one question. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Melanie,
well,
please.
I was just gonna say, we weren't advocating for yelling at people. That was more a stress response that Karishma and I have both had.
Oh yes, please don't yell at people.
I got so much better, and that was just because I could see how much every negative interaction was costing my dog, and that hurt me, which is a whole thing we could spend a lot of time unpacking. But I found when I simplified my response and I systemized my response, I got clearer feedback. And even if the people were like, oh, it doesn't matter. I don't know them. They don't know me, whatever. So I create a physical boundary with my arm, because nobody does this unless they want you to stop. This is a universal signal. Stop, don't get closer. And I say something to the effect of, no, thank you. We need space. Not today, I like from you.
Not today.
He can't say hi. And yes, I used to say, he's sick, he's contagious. I don't actually use that one anymore. I found that mentally, emotionally, it was costing me too much. It was like, where are we? That's a good one if you are really trying to communicate consequences to the other guardian.
Yeah. I often do, because here it looks old as well. Like he's gray, great kind of grayish poodle. So I'm often like, oh, he's an old guy. He doesn't like saying hi. He's got arthritis. People can kind of sometimes understand that a little bit more. But yeah, definitely do not advocate actually yelling at people in the real world. But I do advocate for, if you do have to say no, thank you, please, from a distance. To someone in a polite way, in a non-confrontational way, you might want to rehearse that with your dog before, so they understand that shouting doesn't always mean that something terrible is going to happen in the environment. And yeah, so someone's asking a few more specific questions, but I just want to go into this one, which I think is important. Lots of people come to us with their dogs completely unable to function from the second they step out of the building, get the harness on, see the leash. How would we manage walk? How would we manage walk with these dogs? How would we do that? Is it possible? And what's the answer there?
It is absolutely possible. If this is your dog, I would recommend consulting with one of our private coaches, including myself, about the concept of a chronic stress cycle. Because if your dog is reacting when there's nothing there, reacting right when you get outside, or reacting at every single instance of said trigger, or has what we call comorbid anxieties. They are a SEP dog with reactivity, handling sensitivity, and sound sensitivity. Does that sound like any dog you know? Oh, that's my dog. They need the full picture. They need the holistic approach. They need the HEAL, health, exposure, activity, and learning approach to this.
100%. Agreed.
But, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, and that's where, there's so much we can give on the internet. There's so much we can give for free. Yeah. But I'm not going to lie to you and be like, if your dog doesn't even eat steak on the street, all you have to do is dirt. It's not going to be that simple. I know we can see progress. We can see incredible progress, but I'll need to get into your shoes. I'll need to see what's going on with the dog on a day-to-day basis. And that's where working with our consultants or in our group program, Feisty Fido, would be a really nice starting point for folks. And there was actually one question here, which I think is so useful because it maybe highlights a slight misunderstanding in general. So someone's asking, if your dog barks at strangers, do we just put ourselves then in between the dog and the approaching person in case they reach to pet the dog? And I think what's interesting about this is that when folks think about this, they often go, okay, what's the bare minimum distance that I can give them, right? I'll curve a little bit to the side and put myself in between them. I want you to cross the road. I want you to give your dog the maximum amount of distance that you can give them if they are struggling with triggers. I see lots of folks trying to implement this 50% effort, right? So I'll do like a small curve around. I'll move away, but not out of sight. I'll move away from 50% of the triggers, but not 100% of the triggers. It needs to be, often with Hero at the beginning, I'd see a trigger and we would turn around and we'd move, or we'd be cutting down a side street, we'd be curving it quite dramatically to kind of reduce his stimulus as much as possible. And so I want to just make sure that I'm clear that we can be aware, we can curve, we can block, we can use find its to give them the maximum amount of distance and shielding from these triggers as possible. And when it comes on a case-by-case basis, we will watch videos of the client's dogs walking around the city, and we'll be like, this is the most important thing to shield them from, this is the least important thing. So there can be a spectrum, and we can come up with like approximations, but we are looking to maximize their comfort at all times, because we're looking to like heal them from vigilance, from worry. I see lots of dogs worried all the time.
Yeah, maybe it doesn't look like what we all think of when we're talking about a chronic stress cycle, mm-hmm. but they are always worried. They are asleep and worried.
Yeah.
So something we do, if again your dog is reacting from the get-go, we make a comprehensive list of what is triggering your dog, and we work on exposure in all of those areas.
Yeah, exactly.
Because potentially your dog's bucket, trainers love to talk about this bucket, Dr. Amy Cook's ship as well, but the bucket might be close to overflowing just from putting the harness on, because maybe your dog has some nerve pain because they're chronically itchy. These are the things that I love sleuthing out with the clients in our initial. We get a lot of sleuthing done in the initial because we have a really cool intake form. I just have to brag. It
is good.
I love what people say. We ask about your relationship with your dog. It's just really fascinating. So that's how we sleuth and figure out, and then we innovate around that. So like Karishma said, we prioritize what's our number one priority behavior. And then we just whittle away as we're crafting this behavior plan and exposure plan.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. And like we said many times, we have to finish up in 5 minutes, but we said many times, this is part of a big framework. This is one piece of the puzzle, and we're going into the depth because I want you guys to, this is a very actionable piece of information. So it's great for social media. It's great for folks to look at, but I want to be very clear that this is not the full picture. Someone asked in the chat, can defensive walking alone change the emotional response to the trigger? And I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say absolutely yes. I have a client in my Feisty Fido right. Yes, I have a client in my Feisty Fido right now, and they have been working with reactivity to people, vehicles, dogs, noises outside for many months, many years actually, with minimal success, and they have separation anxiety issues as well. They're taking Feisty Fido with me. The only thing I said to them really at the beginning is I was like, I want you to stop training. They were training all the time. They were going out on walks. They were training around triggers. 50% successful, 50% disastrous, right? Even 70% successful, 30% disastrous, not good enough. Not good enough odds for me, right? And I said to them, I want you to literally stop worrying about triggers. You don't have to think about triggers. I want you to go out on a walk. I want you to, if you see one, move away, run away, and just go for a walk. Stop thinking about triggers. And every week they'd come to me in Feisty and be like, I haven't even done any training. But he just looked at a dog and he walked away. I haven't even done any training, and he was just watching from a distance curiously, and he wasn't immediately panicking anymore. And I remember saying to them, like, you were putting so much pressure on yourself and on him every single day. You were going to therapy 7 days a week, and you were wondering why you weren't seeing that success. It's because half of the time you didn't have the capacity to be there. You needed to be shielded, and he needed to be shielded, and then maybe once a day, 5 days a week, he glimpses a trigger. That's the odds that we're looking for. And exactly the same, I had another client who was doing the same thing. And I said to them, your dog gets to see a trigger on purpose 5 times a week. That's
maximum.
It. 5 times, that's it. That's all you get. And they were like, what? And I was like, yeah. Yeah.
Engineer.
Exactly.
Other things to talk about, and I think the client you're talking about is the one who eventually found decompression walks to be a key component of her training. I don't know if that's the same client, but that's many clients. So that's where we head next. This is merely a really beautiful jumping off point to reduce amount of reactions so that our dog can hopefully get out of a chronic stress cycle and be able to respond to the therapy. It's just like you and me. If we are having panic attacks every day, you do not have the mental capacity to talk about your childhood, right?
Literally. Or if I'm around my parents for like 2 weeks and they want to talk to me about something triggering, I will literally snap in their face. But if I've had my space and I come to them for like an hour, I can do it.
Yeah.
Right? It's exactly that. Like if you're flooded by it, you won't be able to do it. So this piece of the puzzle is about how do we shield, how do we not live at my parents constantly, right? That's that piece of the puzzle. The therapy that you'll do later is a whole other piece of the puzzle, and that's exactly what we do with our clients. Like once we tick this off, we move straight on and we start reintroducing those triggers as quickly as possible in a variety of ways. And I want to just, as we closing up here, if you folks have a few different questions about like specifics, so like what if my dog has a freeze response, or what if my dog is frustrated or excited to greet people? In many cases it's kind of irrelevant. We need to be moving them away immediately. So even if the dog is freezing because they want to go say hi to that person, for me anyway, my rule is, if you really, really want to and you can't, if you're lunging and barking and being really over the top about it, that's not happening for now. No. It's not an option. And so if they're freezing and they want to get closer, or if they're excited and want to go see that person, all the more reason to be like, find it, mm-hmm. Get behind this car, don't even look at them, find it, don't even think about it, find it. Right? And if they're freezing, leash pressure sometimes is what we need to do, right? Freezing is a form of a minor reaction. They're not lunging, but they are refusing to move.
I love when people are like, oh, he just lays down and stares at the other dog. And I'm like, that's a reaction for me in my book. So what I want everyone to do is whatever the behavior is that you're seeing that you feel is either the precursor or the reaction, take one step back from that. So before the dog lays down, of course you can't move your 60-pound dog once he's pancaked. It's going to be really hard. So instead, what happens before that? And maybe do we need to indeed walk at a different time of day? Or I think someone in the chat said they pack up and they go to nature for every walk. And shout out to you, salute you. I know it's hard, good work. Figure out what it is, what the triggers are, what the behavior is, and check out the environment. Walk defensively.
Totally. And this was so fun, Melanie. And if anyone is watching this and going, okay, this makes a lot of sense to me, I want more, I want help, there are two ways you can work with us. We have a Feisty Fido program starting in the next month. So if you're looking for 3 months of trainer support, which kind of walks you through this process and the whole of the HEAL framework as well, you can DM us or comment on this live with the word feisty, and I'll get back to you. We'll talk about whether or not it's a good fit for your dog. For some dogs and people, especially if you're in New York City, I'm going to be recommending we escalate to private services, one-on-one coaching. It's like our most individualized, boutique, tailored service. And Melanie's one of our behavior consultants who offers that. Mostly virtual services. You do actually have a small, very limited availability in person in New York. So if you're interested, you can let me know. You can message me, Melanie or Mel, and message me Melanie's name, and I will... Melanie, and we can chat about whether it's a good fit, because we want to make sure that you're in the right place. So tell us a little bit about yourselves. I see some people commenting right here. Just jump in the DMs for me, my loves, because I'm going to lose your comments when I close this this chat. So just jump in my DMs and just let me know that you're there. We'll chat this evening. But thank you so much. If anyone's watching this, save this, share it. Thank you, Melanie. You're an absolute rock star. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Love on each other. Thank you so much. I will see you all very soon.
Bye, everyone.